but it's really just Kent random thoughts, where I was seeing us going, where we might be going, and being headed in the future. You know, it's been amazing to watch Lincoln. The quality of life and the happiness factors seem to be showing up here. We're getting on to the top 10 list more and more. And it's, you know, you can take those and discount them, but we're on so many now that it's hard to say that you can discount them all. I mean, best place to live, Cornell studies have said our quality of life's the highest. Gallup says we're the healthiest well-being city. Lincoln is, you know, become the best place for babies, top 10, buying a home, affordable health care, launch a new business. The list really goes on and on. Business and career, raising a family for college graduates, for young entrepreneurs, for the trail network, and healthiest small city, most beautiful and underrated city. It just goes on and on of being affordable. And now we're number one for vets, military vets. Bottom line is, I think you're seeing this happen because you didn't see this 10 years ago. You didn't even see it probably 5 years ago, but we took a bold action during the Great Recession that other communities did not have the courage to do. And I commend a lot of the city council for taking that courage and steps. What I'm about to go over here is your own planning department's material. There's a wealth of it, and I'm just going to highlight and pick up some key parts of it along the way. We need to understand where we've been in order to know where we're going, of course, and some of the facts that I think are interesting is the last 40 years, Lancaster County has grown faster annually than the state of Nebraska and even the United States. It's not rapid growth compared to some places, but it's a sure steady growth along the way. Since 2000, the international migration has accounted for 57% of the total growth net migration of Lincoln. We're one of the top refugee centers in the country. Many new Americans arrive to Lincoln every day now. Elliott and Clinton School have 40 different foreign languages spoken, which is quite a challenge, but yet shows that diversity of different countries coming, their citizens coming here. 15% of Lancaster County population is now non-white. That's a 55% increase in less than 10 years. So we're seeing a large increase of what I call new people of color and cultural backgrounds. 1 in 3 LPS student is now non-white. So it's a young population that is becoming more diversified along the way. We've seen significant and rapid LPS enrollment, which has its good and its bad along the way. We're supporting new and remodel school bond issues, which is imperative and critical. And one of the things I see that's been exciting to me is I see the city, the council, and the school board working better and more together. I know it's not been easy, but it's becoming an ideal and better approach because if you look at it, your constituents are virtually the same. You do represent the same group, and I think the citizens expect that, and you're doing a better job of getting that coordinated. Well, the lot supply of Lincoln plateaued in 2007 through 2012, and we're slowing down and drawing down on that large lot supply. So when we went into the Great Recession, we probably had overbuilt our lot supplies, but we're now chewing through that. And it's caused developers to delay platting new lot, which has also caused the pressure on you to be minimized a little bit, because when the development community finally needs to open up new land, it's going to be challenging because of infrastructure dollars, particularly road dollars along the way. This, of course, means we got new schools to also figure out in the days ahead. Residential permits, last 4 years we've seen some recovery from the low. The bottom of the Great Recession was 2009 when on this graph. This has been driven by a lot of multifamily construction. So what we're seeing is the lead in multifamily. That's not unusual in a Great Recession to come out with multifamily first. The trick will be, will we follow it up, which it should in good times be followed up by townhomes and single-family construction along the way. The solid blue line on this graph shows that Lincoln's existing house prices are still below the national orange line and the Midwest black line. So we're still affordable, despite the call that sometimes impact fees and other things have made us unaffordable. The trends show that we're still affordable, but probably not as much as we used to be. What we're seeing here is the type of dwelling construction. Multifamily has grown the strongest. Townhomes have become a popular choice for empty nesters and other people along the way, and have become 20% of the units that have been built are townhomes along the way. So we are seeing a growth in this area, and we are just seeing the new housing coming out after the Great Recession popped and hurt us, but we're bouncing back. What I find interesting is the orange on these last three bars. That's the downtown area. We're seeing a lot of new downtown housing, especially youth and student housing along the way. But that's good because that's a trend line. Healthier downtowns follow, and unhealthy downtowns cannot follow along the way. Let me see if I jump myself. I got myself confused. This is a chart that is concerning me in that our average dollars, wage dollars, our unemployment's great, but we're underemployed. That's our problem, is we have a lot of smart people that don't have jobs matching their skill sets, and we're starting to see in real wage dollars that this is becoming a problem as well, in that we're below where we should be on wages. And I think wages lead to consumer spending leads to a multiplier effect in your community, and until we get job growth to come back and wages to go up, we're going to have a challenge staying in the top 10 list in several of the categories along the way. I apologize, but somehow what I thought was the presentation is bouncing around on me. Change, of course, is inevitable. The question is progress optional along the way? And that's, I think, where we're at in the way of Lincoln as a crossroad, is we've progressed so well the last several years, but will we continue to progress in the days and years to come in this community? The largest employers, you can see here, government still leads the charge with being the largest employers. The top categories, healthcare is coming in next. B&R stores was the largest employer from the private sector by Altel and Emeritus and other companies you can see on that chart along the way. This hurts us in good times, being so governmentally driven, but during the Great Recession it didn't hurt us because we probably had less unemployment, as you saw along the way. So we take the good with the bad with our mixture of jobs in this market. When it comes to the current and real value dollars, this is where I get worried the most. Because of the strong ag economy, we see that Nebraska, which is the black line, Nebraska is the light blue line. You can see Nebraska is doing better than the city of Lincoln when it comes to real income in this chart. And again, that's because of the strong agricultural influence in the greater part of the state. So Lancaster's income is below the state and is below the United States. So that's not a trend that, again, we need to be cognizant of and try to do our best to address. We talk about unemployment rates. Again, we're agriculturally based. That worked because we're conservative. Our public and private financial ideologies have worked well for us during the bad times, and the question is, will we take that strategy and apply it to the good times? Between 2001 and 2012, the industrial sector in Lincoln declined, but we saw some increases in business and commerce, and government just remained plain steady along the way. I think there's two ways to grow a community. What I call the high unemployment and low wage model That works in the short term, but it doesn't create much sustainability. And then what I call the other model, which is high quality. Whatever you do, try to do it well, because people do respect and appreciate quality. And if you think about it, who's deciding a lot of the capital market decisions are CEOs. And if they believe and want to live in good communities with good parks and good schools and good housing, they tend to want to bring their company and their jobs with them along the way. And so when in doubt, err on the quality side in here. Lancaster County is better educated than the state of Nebraska as a whole and of the United States. So we got low wages, below average, but we got more brain power than the rest. And again, this we have to thank LPS, parochial schools, Southeast Community College, the University Wesleyan, and Union College, and others to making us so smart in appearance along the way. One of the things we're starting to see is what I call an income gap. It started up showing up more in 2010. If you look at the census data, the 1% versus the 99%, it's a gap not only nationally, but it's here in Lincoln as well along the way when you adjust for it along to make things go forward. It scares me because we're now seeing 44% of the LPS students on free and reduced lunch programs. That's not a good sign. That's not a good trend. We have 12,500 children living in poverty, and the amount of percentage of children in poverty has doubled since 2008. That's not a very long period to be doubling. So we will be facing this. The nation's facing it, but we got to figure out how it works best in Lincoln along the way. Ridership, this is one of those haves and have-nots issue. We had 2.2 million riders last year. It's 41% more riders of the bus than it was in 2000. That's a big increase, and 9% higher than it was in 2012. Ridership is as high as it's ever been in the last 26 years. And bottom line is public ridership has outpaced population growth. Again, it's a sign of the gap between the haves and the have-nots increasing along the way. Almost 20% of Lincoln residents since 2012 commute by other means than the single passenger automobile. Lincoln's become one of the top 10 trail cities. Bicycling, which is the lime green color, has increased as a share of commuters. And what I found interesting here is we complained about congestion. Yes, we do have congested areas, but since 1980, it took the average Lincolnite 16 minutes to get to work. Today, it's taken us 18 minutes. That surprised me. I would have thought it would have taken longer. But that's also probably an indication that we're spreading out where people live and work, and we're not putting all the work in one area and the homes in all the surrounding areas, so the travel time takes longer. This probably doesn't surprise you. We are driving more. So this chart shows with the increase in population, we are driving more miles within Lincoln, and this puts more stress on your budget for repairs of the road and the potholes and the new roads that we're going to need when the economy kicks in and we go through our supply of lots and have to open up new areas. So while we're driving more, this chart shows we're crashing less, which is, very important for several. One, your design standards are better, but two, the bigger reason is anti-lock brakes and other vehicle improvements have made the roads safer along the way. Lincoln works best when the public and private sectors are on parallel course. Most people don't think that way, but that's the way I think. I think of it, and John and I have talked about the railroad image on many occasions, but when the private rail and the public rail align, the train goes forward, and when the two rails don't get aligned, you can't move the train or it crashes along the way. JFK once said, "Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past, but let us accept our responsibilities for the future." I think that similarly works, that let us not seek the public sector answer or the private sector answer, but the right answer. One of the new paradigms that I think is going to be critical to Lincoln in the years to come is what I call the gridlock problem in Washington, D.C. We needed a new paradigm. Too long we were dependent upon Washington for federal dollars, particularly to come into this community. And bottom line is Lincoln's going to have to figure out how to invest in itself. With Washington's gridlock and looming deficits, I don't think we can wait on many projects for Washington to help Lincoln. Lincoln's just got to do it themselves. I think the state has limited resources and is talking about property tax and other tax decreases, so I wouldn't be waiting around for state government as well. I think we got to look inside this room and outside this room for the answer. And with this comes one of the examples of where I think the public and the private sector worked so well together was on some of the 2015 vision pillars. We think this is a private sector effort, but it wasn't. Virtually every one of the 10 pillars was in a public plan that the public had already discussed or had approved through the council measure. All the private leaders did was come together and push on those ideas that the public had already announced as being viable and worth talking about. The goal was to get the 10 pillars to start in 2015, not to finish, but to start. And here we are 7 years later. We've got the West Haymarket Arena done, Nebraska Sports Triangle, hotels, downtown Civic Plaza, Larson Building, P&Q Retail Corridor, Antelope Valley finished, the University Research Corridor have been launched or nearly completed. We have 3 pillars that have not launched under that vision. One was the expansion of the Agricultural Exposition Center, which will not happen because the vision was to move State Fair out to 84th and share with Lancaster Event Center. Well, that's not going to happen, but that doesn't mean the Lancaster County Event Center can't program up and has been trying to program up to do more of that type of agricultural activity in our community. While most communities went backward during the Great Recession, thanks to the private and the public sector, Lincoln went forward in a big, big way. And there's still 2 pillars to launch. One is the convention center, and 2 is the sports fields activity. And again, the sports fields are launching as we speak. They're just not as far along as the other pillars at this stage. Just take you around and just give you a lot of projects that you have seen come through your offices. The West Haymarket obviously has been huge in so many ways and a major community reinvestment. Parts of it, the rail yard, add a lot of buzz, especially for 20, 30, and 40-year-olds. If you've been down there, it's just shocking how young the crowd is down there. And that's the vitality we were seeking and needing to sustain the brighter minds. Yeah, well, that too. Three new hotels, and the existing hotels have been updated and refurbished during this period of time. We've got mixed use of hotels and housing working together side by side. We've got new office buildings that have come onto the marketplace in this area. And yet we still got 3 neat redevelopment sites yet left that the market is starting to formulate visions with the city on how to best fill those 3 remaining spots. South of O Street is another area of 2 major redevelopment sites that can and will go forward in the days ahead. And of course, the South Haymarket area is probably the next frontier. I mean, 20-some years ago, John was maybe 2 people were the pioneers, and look, it's all changed. West Haymarket's literally happened in a matter of 3 or 4 years, and South is probably primed to go forward, and it's already started with Swartz Paper, the Metal Gold Project, and Color Court that have come before you as well. We need to start looking at South Downtown. North of O, it's 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 at night, 2 o'clock in the morning type downtown. South of O, it's 8 to 5, and there just aren't the eyes on the street. There aren't the neighborhood services south of O to attract as many rooftops, meaning new housing projects in that area. And yet we need both, because the south of O tends to be a lot of governmental and institutional services that we need to keep strong and growing as well. So I think this is an area the private sector and the public sector will be coming together to help solve. Convention centers have been talked about east of Cornhusker Hotel as one of the pillars that needs to be completed. With our strong new number of rooms and rehab rooms, we're primed not to be a national convention center. It won't happen with the airport, but we can sure be Nebraska's conference center, where people do love to come to Lincoln from the greater part of the state and conference and get together for our activities. Sites that have been talked about again are east of the Cornhusker Hotel. Other site could be the post office someday. While we don't want to lose post office jobs, that industry has changed as much as anybody in the way of their technologies and their equipment and how they are consolidating more and more. Could that be the site in the future? Again, we don't want to scare the post office off in any fashion, but if they do decide to consolidate operations in other places, that could be a great site along the way. We've seen Landmark 3 come forward, which is creating new investments on Lincoln Mall, which is good because that's the south of O Street area. Farmers Mutual Insurance has made a big progress and new building along the way. And I think this will be an area that will be talked about in the next couple years, what to do with Pershing and the federal parking garage. I think they go hand in hand. They could and should be reconfigured, and I think you will see how that come forward, but we will have to figure out demolition costs for $1.8 million for Pershing, and if we want to save the mural, that's about $1.2 million to figure that pickle out. You remember this image, most of you. The university has been extremely busy with the renovation of Devaney, new Breslin Ice Center with the city, new student housing, College of Business Administration. But the biggest project, I think, the most exciting for Lincoln, is the Nebraska Innovation Campus. So this picture, if you remember, you're looking at 95 buildings that used to be out there. 95 of the State Fair. Today, there is 4 original buildings standing out of the 95. So lots of change. If you haven't been out there, do drive, because you won't recognize the landscape out there anymore. We've obviously done a lot of master planning. Over 20 new buildings are planned along the way. The 4-H is one of the 4 that still remains, but it has a whole new look. Here's a picture of what it used to look, and if you haven't been out there, you should go see the conference center. It's beautiful how they've taken that 4-H building and converted it into other activities along the way. Another part is the whole Innovation Commons that has sprung to the north of the 4-H building, which will create new opportunities for the private and the public sector. The Industrial Arts Building, if you've driven by it, it's very unique looking how it's being redeveloped with buildings next to it into a new food innovation center, and create a lot of new jobs and boosts for the economy of Lincoln. Again, another project they have come in front of you. Another one was the innovation of how they're heating and cooling. They're using your Teresa Street water to get the transfer of heat and cooling off of that, and it's powering the heat exchange and the cooling out at Innovation Campus. Antelope Valley. Many people didn't think Antelope Valley could be done, and you did it as a community along the way. The new Union Plaza has been a big boost. Assurity's big project has removed the floodplain from the cancer of East Downtown, and now we have new buildings such as Assurity coming up. The Community Health Endowment, which is catty corridor. The Jane Snyder Trail Center is a stopping point for the 6.2 miles of new trails that connect Lincoln's 7 trails that headed towards the downtown area. We have the Newman Center. It's a beautiful building that's going up, and it will be a real boost to the university and to the city, along with a new Catholic men's fraternity. Aspen Heights Student Housing, another project. I mean, this is kind of like a review of what you've done the last several years. It's in front of your eyes. It's been a huge volume of activity with the new 5-story project plan there. The 4 blocks I think you will see next happening is the 4 blocks of north of O between 19th and 20th with the old railroad, Rock Island Railroad Station will be a hub of those redevelopment blocks that bordered by Union Plaza on the east side here. The integrated healthcare facility, you know, with the merger of Office Max and Office Depot caused that building to come available and close, and now we've popped in a new integrated healthcare facility which the community needs for services along the way. So the before and after look is shown there. Another block that I think will happen soon is just south of O, the Antelope Valley, where you have on the west side the new Antelope Valley roadway and 20th Street. Along this corner of Antelope Valley and O Street, you're seeing 50,000 cars going one way and 40,000 cars going another way, and it's one of the few downtown blocks that doesn't have a block in between. In other words, it's 2 blocks combined into one without a street. So that does allow a grocery store, which does require some parking to go forward possibly in the days ahead. This is a project you've worked on, but we haven't popped it out of the ground yet, but it's out for request for redevelopment opportunities is the 21st and N area. We need to get that done. I think you will see the market come in this time with ideas that hopefully will pop out of the ground. Now I'm going to quickly run you around the city of Lincoln. That was the core. Now comes the outer edge. We have Northeast Lincoln. LPS has been busy modeling the new headquarters and mixed use with Whole Foods, the new Career Academy at Southeast Community College, Cornhusker Bank's office building, and the 98th Street extension from A to O Street has been major parts of this area. In the days to come, I think you will see the VA campus come forward as a redevelopment. That's 57 acres of new housing for seniors and veterans that I think we'll see coming forward in the days ahead. This is showing the sewer map to the northeast Lincoln and the start of the Stevens Creek development. We have the sewer extension coming, and it took a while, and it's opened the doors to Waterford, which is one of the faster growing new areas in our community with its new lake. It also has a large employer opportunity area. Let us not forget the East Beltway. We must keep that in the plans. We must protect that corridor. Otherwise, 98th Street will be the East Beltway, and it won't work that well. We do need to complete the Beltway network, and the East Beltway should be more in the 10 to 20 year vision and not the 50-year vision in this community. Stevens Creek is great. The market likes it, but you're going to have infrastructure challenges. You've got the sewer going, but we're a long ways from roads and water in this area. And as you can see, the creek goes southeast, and every time we build the sewer to follow the drainage way, we get further and further away from 84th Street, which means the road and the water has to come even further as we go south. And so that's going to be a real challenge to get that area to finish out. Southeast Lincoln's been busy, to say the least. Village Gardens, other developments, more walkable front porches, greet new neighbors all the time. And we have new types of housing. The sewer, you just recently had the Rokeby Coalition project in front of you. 700 acres, Jensen Park, huge area that you will see lots of growth from 70th to 95th on both sides of Rokeby Road. So that area will be popping rooftops, and just to the north is 84th and Highway 2, shopping area. It needs rooftops. This is really going to help finish that area to be a major retail area. We have the future home for Jensen Park, again a classic example of you working with LPS to open up that new area for the middle school and the new YMCA. And there's a lot of coordination on trying to get all these projects done in Southeast Lincoln. And the city took a lot of effort in trying to get it figured out and you funding it along the way. And as a result, there's a lot of infrastructure going in this area. South Lincoln, very popular area. South of the new Super Target area, you will see again the sewer. We brought in an amended annexation agreement for Sampson recently. You will see this area open up. New car dealerships are opening up, and this has some big employment centers that hopefully will attract commerce to this area. The South Beltway funding, we can build it in 2020 if we can figure out how to get the city's 20% match there. And again, that's going to be one of your challenges to coming, and it's a high priority, I think, for the private sector to get that built and get South Highway 2, less trucks to travel down its corridor. Southwest Lincoln, you know, this is a sweet spot, and people don't recognize it as a sweet spot. It's got US 77, it's got some of the best road networks, which, by the way, that's the most expensive infrastructure. We already got it in place. You got a lot of water in that area now because the Walmart site failed, but it's there. This area could and should open up. It is so fast to get to downtown with US 77 and Rosa Parkway. This is minutes from downtown, and so I think you will see that hopefully the market will open this up. We've also expanded the Optimus Park with Ford going now to 10 sports fields along the way. Where am I? Yes, this is showing you the sewer ability. You already got the roads and you got some water line in this area. I think you will see it go forward. Northwest Lincoln. Northwest Lincoln, historically, the last 20 years, has been the second fastest growing area. Again, people don't recognize how much nice infrastructure and choices are out there in Northwest Lincoln. We have the new employment center, the ring neck at Northwest 48th and I-80, some new road networks planned out in that region, which will be key. The Airport Authority has had its busiest year last year, and they're on a roll. I think you're seeing the most investment occur out at Airpark that we've ever seen. 4 recent major construction projects. I won't go through those, but the biggest one was the Duncan Aviation. But they've had literally over $75 million of investment out there. That's huge for this community. And they got a vision for the Airpark Rail Center, which will be they're working on a $2.8 million infrastructure package to open up this part of Airpark, which is 350 acres in the nearest time. North Lincoln, new schools, new housing. You can see, again, we've got a large employment center that's master planned at 56 and I-80. And we've finished the long-awaited interstate expansion. Now we can focus it going out to Grand Island to bring people from west into Lincoln even faster and easier for them. Fallbrook's been successful, again, a basis of quality, not speed, but I think you're seeing more and more services, critical mass. Neighborhood services will bring rooftops. One of the challenges is our employment centers. We've designated Northwest 48th and I-80, Waterford, 40th and Saltillo, Warlick Boulevard, US 77, North 56 and I-80, all in the comp plan. But you couldn't pull a building permit out there if you wanted to. Companies, generally some come to Lincoln, if you've got a site within that can pop within 90 days or 180 days, they're interested. If not, they can find communities. All our key employment centers, in my opinion, are designated, but they do not have infrastructure, which means we're 3 to 5 years away from really being able to pop some bigger companies in Lincoln. So we need to focus again. If I sound like a broken record on infrastructure, it's because I am one on this. Another opportunity that is really exciting to me are the sports fields expansion. Sporting Village is coming out of the ground. It's very exciting to see it happen. The Great American Sports Park has been approved by the council. These are just huge economic dollars. The average person comes into Lincoln. We've all had, maybe we not all have had kids, but several of us have, and we've toured the greater Omaha area, Des Moines area, Kansas City area, and I don't care if it's soccer, wrestling, gymnastics, cheerleading, basketball. It's just a huge thing that we do as a community. Lincoln is finally realizing that this is great dollars because it represents $286 a day for that person to come. Well, the kid doesn't drive themselves. They bring mom and dad, and they often bring a sibling. So that's about $1,000 that comes into the community. Every day we attract these sporting or cultural type events, which then multiplies 3 times over in our economy. Direct economic benefit that's huge rather than splitting the existing pie. The Sports Triangle and Sports Park of Vision 2015 is trying to capitalize on that, where there needs to be things done besides the sporting events. When you come to the great communities, the parents report, they come and there's something to do besides the sporting events. And while Lincoln has now gotten several key sporting events, including the Jensen Park, to be added to the map, we need to start focusing on the next level, and that's to create the sports convention and entertainment type authority where there's something to do after the event. We have developed these great new open spaces and fun places: West Haymarket Festival parking, the rail yard, Tower Square, Centennial Mall, Union Plaza, Pioneer Park. If we market it better, there's something for these families to do when they're not competing on the sports fields. And there's things that not only will they enjoy, but the rest of the Lincoln citizens will enjoy, cultural events, programming of these spaces. We have the most beautiful spaces now, but we haven't taken it to the next level and programmed them and figured out how to really bring the people into those areas along the way. LB 1018 and the occupation tax, again, I know you've approved this once for the Great American Sports Park, the occupation tax. I think you're going to see that as a major funding tool. Remember my double rail. The public and the private have to work together to make these things happen because they do not generally work by solo approaches along the way. Nebraska Crossing Outlet Mall was over $100 million retail project, and they used LBA 1018, which allows them to have a vote of the people and to designate the local portion of their sales tax to pay bonds to make that project come out of the ground. These are tools. I know you're talking about TIF today. We shouldn't be talking narrowing. We should be talking strategizing on how to broaden these financing tools because they do generate dollars both directly and indirectly for the citizens as well as government. This is going to be a handful for you in the next 6 months, the reform process along the way. Similarly, the gas line pipeline discussion is going to be a tough discussion. Yankee Hill Road and 84th Street, Health Department's recommending we set back 240 feet. That's 8/10 of a block that we just don't use for most development. Along Yankee Hill and 84th, that's going to be a challenge that this community is going to have to be addressing in the near term. Questions? This just gives you where the word question mark arose, but I'd be glad to address comments, or you guys can have a discussion, or we can move on to your next agenda item.
Well, thank you, Kent. Good presentation and lots of excitement. And I appreciate, too, your statement in there about quality over quantity. I think that's right. I've got a couple things here. I was at a meeting recently, and the LPED, the Lincoln Partnership in Economic Development, is partnering again with Angelos Marketing, and have Angelos back up here. One of the comments that was made to me is that we've got the low unemployment, but that there are also some challenges in that there are more jobs out there, but a concern that maybe our educational institutions are not matching correctly. And there's some fairly significant employers in Lincoln that are having to go outside Lincoln because the training just doesn't match. And you and I remember in our old days here in Lincoln Public Schools, I think everyone does, you have the high school guidance counselor and they say, well, there's kind of this need to be accountants or be engineers or whatever. And you also hit on the nail on the head too, saying we've got a fantastic educational system, and we do at all levels, post-secondary, everywhere. We've got lots to offer. So I guess what I'm leading up to though is how do we better get that job matching? Because if the employment's there, and I was rather surprised at the numbers of jobs and the pay level. These are not entry-level jobs. These are substantial income levels.
Well, I think the new career academy is the start at the bottom for the younger generation, but there's also needs to be retooling of the older generation. I never want to outkick my punt coverage, and one area is I'm not an expert in that. All I know is it needs to be done just like you articulated. But what are the specific solutions? There's smarter people that can give you an answer than I could.
I had another question I made. You had the bus ridership schedule on there and how it's at a high level, maybe the highest we've ever had. Does that include some of the specialty bus ridership, like to schools for children and the Big Red Express?
I don't know the answer to that. Planning department should be able to answer it because it was their data, so I
Okay.
don't know how.
I think it's something we just need to understand.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer either. I know that budget-wise, we get more revenue out of those, and it's otherwise it's a fairly heavily subsidized system, but
Yeah.
a resource we need to use better.
You know, bottom line is we subsidize both systems, ridership as well as cars. And, you know, that's just part of the choices, public policy choices we've made at both federal, state, and local level.
Fairly hard to have mass transportation without mass.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have public here.
Yeah.
Before I defer, another question. You talked about a convention center several times, and you may recall in the early stages before Pinnacle Bank Arena and all, maybe a decade or more ago, we were talking about a joint convention arena type situation. And then I think at the time anyway, wisely, it was decided, you know, there's so much competition nationally for conventions and with costly airfares and everything that people aren't traveling as much, so businesses aren't going outside their geographical boundaries. And so maybe this is not an area an arena, so to speak, or an area to compete in, but you did bring it up a couple times, and you mentioned too the Innovation Campus Conference Center. And so are you having a change of thought on that?
No, we need to be building new bridges of education and communication and conferencing. I don't care if it's 4-H or whoever, but Greater Western Nebraska needs to come to Lincoln as use and see some neat facilities and then have their eyeballs across the street to the University of Nebraska to remind them that that's a target that we should be striving for along the way. Businesses do need to come together. I'm not saying a market study would definitely be required to be sure my theories are right. And I'm talking about a Nebraska Conference Center that would be for primarily all that. I mean, I look around this table and every one of you must belong to one, if not two, trade organizations that need to get together and do get together and compare notes. We don't always have the best facilities in Lincoln for those type of activities, and I don't want to overbuild this because they're lost leaders.
You're not talking about building like an Austin Convention Center or CenturyLink up in Omaha. You're talking about something a little bit more mid to small range.
Correct. More in our price tag and our size and our ability to service it. And this convention or conference center would not only be applicable, it goes back to the sports fields concept. Because when you bring the tournaments, I can see educational seminars on soccer and other things that would then use that facility for the education of the referees or whatever, the kids themselves. So it's taking these silos that we've developed and create a new way to cut across and blend what historically we look as silos. And I think getting together people as conferencing is one of those ways to cut across a lot of silos.
Okay, you talked about the Sports Convention Entertainment Authority. Is that different than the VPC? And
What's the
or is it
VPC?
Visitors Promotion Center? Or
Yeah,
council
it
committee?
takes that concept about 3 levels up,
Okay.
where it's actually coordinated. Our public facilities and our private facilities market even stronger, so that when something big comes to town, this organization has the ability to program the volunteers to check in the bags and check in your registration, but then has programming what you do when the event's over. What's the fun stuff for the family? Where do you shop? Where do you do this? We do some of this, but I'm saying we're ready to take it, I think, 3 levels up. That's the experience families really go nuts for, and then they want to come back to Lincoln. They don't try us once and leave. They come back because we have the full package. And the authority approach, and I don't mean it, authority sounds governmental and dictatorial and all those things. I don't mean it that way. But it's a way to, it's a new public-private approach to take it 3 steps up to leverage our resources. We've got it already. It's just packaging it, marketing it.
Do we refocus that, the VPC then? How do we start? I'm on that committee, so I'm kind of engaged here.
Well, I'd probably like to go offline and talk to you
Sure.
about some ideas, but it starts by bringing the key stakeholders together. You know, Parks and Rec has certain jurisdictional issues and opportunities. So you've got some, the private sector's got some, but we've never tried to create the overlay so that everybody's clear that it's one stop. You come to some web page and it's all there. What to do before, after, during, what to expect. Again, they do so much of it, but I think we've never gotten the gumption to work it. You know, to me, it's LPED on steroids at the sports and entertainment level.
You got my attention on that, so I'd be happy to talk. And then job growth. Is a reason that we're not moving, that we don't see wages creeping up, is that because we're so heavily government employed? You know, we're a university state, and there's not a lot, I mean, it's not like there's a ton of job mobility on the state on the state side of the university or the state.
We should not look to government for job growth. I mean, your own experience tells you we've cut back, and over the trend, all governments have been steady while the rest of the population's grown. You know, that's just going to happen. That's called efficiency and figuring out technology better. So government's not the lead. It's a private sector issue. And again, you got to give the private sector, the public has to help give them the resources to attract. Education's key, conferencing is key, infrastructure's key, places to put companies down is key. You heard me say, we don't have good employment center sites. We've chewed through the ones we've had. The next ones are going to take some infrastructure to open them up. And that's where I think you can attract some outsiders. But, you know, the outside strategy is worth this much to me. The real growth is growing our own entrepreneurs. And one of the things we did, thanks to you, during the Great Recession, is we created some pizzazz. Well, when you're 20 and 30, that's important to have pizzazz. But once they realize that they can't play in the rail yard all the time, and they have to work, then the technology issue and the software and those entrepreneurs, the rake school, those type of things, we're seeing it happen. I mean, I see more startups than we've seen in a long time. Good news is some of those will grow up and be big. And those are the ones that we got to have sites for. And I worry that we don't.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Kent. I heard this in December, and my mind was blown then, and another chance to hear it again is great. Any idea how much, if you added together all of the projects that we've seen throughout the community in the last 5 years, for example, a dollar figure as to what all those might add up to be?
I don't have that number. I mean, Antelope Valley itself is over $500 million.
Yeah.
And that's just one area. The rail yard, we must have spent between the public and private 400 to $500 million. So there's $1 billion. The university, I haven't counted their new construction projects, but it's huge. So I mean, if you said it was over $2 billion, I would not be surprised.
Yeah. You talked about our international growth and minority growth, and how well are we doing? Do you have any sense of how well we're doing at assimilating these individuals into the community and training them for good jobs and that sort of thing?
Well, we sure have a lot of social service agencies trying real hard, and LPS and the city trying hard to create opportunities. Here's my simple answer. you know, a lot of our ancestors came in the 1800s. And if you look back at our ancestors, you want to talk about gutsy people. To leave their home country, those were the true entrepreneurs. And I view the new Americans coming to Lincoln the same way. They just need the opportunity. You know, I've yet to meet a low-income person that wants to stay low income. Think about that. They don't really want to stay that way. So there is, the question is, do we give them the resources, you know, the jobs, the housing costs that are affordable, education. And again, that's a big community issue, but I don't view it as a negative. I view it as we got the cream of the crop that decide to leave their country, and they have entrepreneurial skills. We just got to, it's like seeds, we just got to water it now, and watch it grow and give them the opportunities.
Any other questions?
I've got a basic anal one. I wasn't going to do this, but I just got to. How do we avoid creating $7.5 million pieces of concrete like this? This is a chunk of concrete, 4 months old.
Carry that in your pocket or?
Yeah, I found this Friday night by the Grand Theater at 11th and P. This is the new P Street $7.5 million project. Snowplow target, 4 months old. And, you know, you highlighted throughout your presentation the need for infrastructure, and I'm needing more streets, roads, getting out there to have employment centers.
As well as repair and keep the ones we have.
Our water
going.
mains. I mean, let's not have more hitching posts, floods in their basements and all. And I worry, to me, it's not very glamorous. It's not a new arena or something, but, you know, if this is 4 months and you go down O Street, go down other areas, go and see the sidewalk in front of the Grand already cracked. We need to design better, I think, for Nebraska climate. We can't design for Scottsdale, Arizona, or Sarasota, Florida. And I'm concerned that we continue to do that. I'm concerned about the protected bike lane.
Yeah.
What's going to happen there? And you know, we have limited resources, and I want to keep, like I think everybody does, keep plowing that into new and better things. But we got to look at maintenance ahead and caulking the streets so that water doesn't freeze. You get down there and freeze, and do 13,000 potholes. And I think we're missing something here.
Well, you know, maintaining what you have is the first priority always, because if people can't safely get to work because of potholes, you know, that's a cost, auto repair, et cetera. I think you have done a good job overall on your design standards. Now, whether or not they're there yet, again, I'm not an engineer, so I'm out kicking my coverage there. You got a tough job. I've never.
Yeah. I think on
didn't-
design standards, there's one thing for what the building, the setbacks, and the appearance there, but I'm not sure. I mean, this is 4 months old. This
Yeah.
is a recent design.
Well,
And
I think if you got a lot of public works design standards on that type of issue as well. Now, whether or not they've solved them on, be it stormwater on down to pavement standards, you know, I don't know how that happened, and I'm not going to try to defend what happens. You know, we build new houses and things go wrong. I mean, that's just part of life.
it was a snowplow target.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Kent, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
One of the things that I hope this does is, in many ways, I think we're our own worst enemy. I mean, we've all gotten on an airplane somewhere, and the guy next to you says, "Where are you from?" And you mumble Lincoln, Nebraska, instead of standing up and saying, "Hey, we're from Lincoln, Nebraska, and we're damn proud of it." I think this is why we ought to be. I think it's not accidental that Lincoln has been in the top 10 of so many things recently, and so I think we need to celebrate that too, instead of just deciding that nobody's very smart here, and say, yeah, there's a lot of things going good. Do we have ways to go? Absolutely, but let's just keep charging on and say, okay, let's recycle and go.
What I'm trying to say, and I'm maybe not saying it clearly, during the Great Recession, the public and private sector came together and created new models that have proven to be dynamic. Now that we're not in the Great Recession, the question is, will the public and the private sector still have the gumption and the guts to create new models for that type of economy. And I worry that sometimes Lincoln goes to sleep. And I just don't want to see that. We've got momentum. You and I all know how hard it takes and how much energy it takes to even get something going. It's easier to sustain it than to start it again, and that's our challenge.
Well, one of the things, I was with somebody this weekend that was here for the state basketball tournament, and we always have these discussions about whether the arena's making money, not making money, where it is, this, that, and the other thing. And I don't know how you quantify the fact that you had 40,000 people in here this weekend, many of which, this is their first time coming to Lincoln. And you've planted the seed. And how do you quantify that and put that in a big number?
Yeah.
You can't. So, thank you for
Thank you very much.
We'll be back in 5 minutes.